It's been really surprising to me in dating recently and like being more intentional with dating, how much I have learned about myself and what I'm looking for. Because you would think, like, by now, like, you know what you're looking for and you're really clear. But then you meet people or something happens and you're like, oh, uh, yeah, never never thought about that before. I don't know if that actually works. This came up for me recently because I went on a date with a guy who was 5 years younger than me. So on Bumble, I do like 5 years younger, 10 years older. So he was the youngest that I was willing to date, and I was kind of like, are you really gonna be mature and at the stage of your life that I'm looking for? But on our first date, I was blown away. Like, wow, you really, like, you have your life together, you're super clear. um and he even asked me, like, towards the end of our first date, he was like, so, like, what are you looking for in a partner? Oh my god. Like, I'm 33 and I have a hard time asking those deeper probing questions like on the third date. And here you are on the first having the maturity and the thoughtfulness to ask that kind of a question. And what a good question. I'm like, oh, I should write that down for future use. That's such a better question than the one I've been asking, which is like, tell me about your relationships and like what you've learned from them, or something that feels maybe a little bit more intense. So him asking, what are you looking for in a partner, just felt like really intentional and thoughtful, and acknowledge the fact that, like, we met on a dating site, right? Like, we are on a date. Like, there's a reason that we are both here, and let's actually talk about that and what we're looking for and if we're actually a fit. And so I was just kind of like, you have your job together, your life together, and you're being intentional with dating, and you're 5 years younger than me. Like, way to go, bro. You rock. And so we just had a really wonderful first date. I enjoyed him, and that question sparked like a more intimate conversation, and we were both kind of looking for the same thing. So I was pretty stoked after the first date. And so over the weekend, he was texting me and trying to figure out what we should do for our second date. And here it goes downhill. I didn't know it was going to go downhill. It was a bit of a slippery slope at first. I didn't see it coming. He was like, hey, like, why don't we go to a brewery? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, actually, like, I don't drink beer. I think it's gross. I think it's so gross. I don't understand how people drink beer. Maybe I just have like too many college memories from a keg. But that's not even true. Like, I've tried sips of people's beer in all different kinds, like the hoppy and the IPA and the dark and the whatever else there is. And every sip I've had, I'm like, I don't know why you would even go a second sip. Like, oh, I'm good. So, yeah, definitely not going to a brewery. And in fact, like, I don't actually drink that very often at all. I drink socially, like, if I'm out with girlfriends and happy hour, like, I'll have a glass of wine to be social, but it's like not a big part of my life. Anyway, so what I said to him was, yeah, like, I don't drink beer, and in fact, like, I actually don't drink that much at all. What do you think about doing blah 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 instead? And he said, oh, well, like, me and my family, we like to have beverages. Is that okay? And I was like, oh, he's like thinking about how I would fit in with his family. Oh, thought it was so sweet. And I was like, no, like, that's not what I meant. It's totally fine that you drink. I don't want to go to a brewery. And so we're at the slippery slope and I don't know it, right? Here's where it starts to go downhill. His response was, well, I think it's important to be clear and transparent and honest. And me and all of my friends like to have some beverages. I don't know why he keeps using that languaging. We like to have some beverages. Like, why don't you just say we drink, right? Have some beverages. That feels like you're minimizing something that actually might be a really big deal or a problem, but maybe I'm overreacting. I'm not sure. So I'm reading this text message. I want to be clear and honest. Me, all my family and friends, like, we like to have some beverages. My ex-girlfriend didn't like me drinking very much at all. And so I just want to be upfront. Red flag on the field. Like, what is happening? And so I flipped over to his Bumble profile, and there's a way that you can say how much you drink, and most people put that they're a social drinker. But he put that he was a frequent drinker, which when I was swiping didn't like raise any flags for me, especially because he's a little bit younger, and I was like, oh, maybe he's still like going out and stuff. And now I'm reading this message and I'm like, pause. You're a self-described frequent drinker. All of your family and friends and intimate relationships revolve around alcohol. And you've already had one relationship where alcohol was like a tension and a factor in your relationship.
Oh, so it's not good. It's not good.
I didn't know what to say to that. What do you say to that? I wasn't sure. And I also don't know what it means to be a frequent drinker. Like, everybody's definition of that is going to be different, right? So I text all of my girlfriends and I was like, I know this is super random, but like, how often does your guy drink? And they were like, well, like, have a drink? That would be like a couple of times a week. Have multiple drinks on the same night? Maybe once a week, every other week, something like that. And I'm like, yeah, like, that's what I'm used to. Because, of course, they're my friends, right? Like, they're going to have similar views to me. I just, like, never quantified it before. But it's like, okay, now that we have, like, what people do, how do you define that? Is that a social drinker or is that a frequent drinker? And what is my date trying to say? And so I was just like, well, I just told him, like, you know what? Alcohol is a really, like, nuanced conversation, and we're not going to be able to tackle that via text message for sure. So, let's just meet up and see what happens. And we met up and we ended up going to a driving range. So we went golfing, we went driving. He actually improved my drive. He gave me some tips. I was like, this is so much better. Thank you. Dating 101. And we were so obviously I'm not going to like mid-swing in front of everybody else on the open field and be like, so tell me more about this alcohol issue. Like, now is not the time. And we were going to get coffee or ice cream afterwards. I thought maybe that would be a more appropriate time to continue that conversation. But he walked me to my car and I was like, so, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to get coffee or ice cream? Or, like, do you want to just, like, meet up again another time? And he was like, well, I really need to go home and, like, meal prep for the week. Can we just, like, go on another date another time? And I said, that would be great. Like, that's totally fine. And then as we were driving away, I had this little voice in the back of my head say, is he really going home to meal prep? Or is he going home to drink? And he doesn't want you to know. Which sounds crazy, but I'm the daughter of an alcoholic, as you know, and I've been lied to far too many times about things like that. And my date is a massive golfer. He golfs 4 or 5 times a week, and part of the reason we went to a driving range. But my dad was a golfer too, And what I know about golfers is like they'll drink. Some people will drink the whole 18 holes, and I just projected myself into the future with him and seeing myself like at home being the wife, like puttering around the house, waiting for him to come home from the golf course, and worrying about him driving home from the golf course because I know that he's been drinking all day. And I literally just I felt like my mother. I felt like I was living her life, and it freaked me out. I also knew that I was super overthinking things. But when I was sitting in that car and that voice of like distrust was like, I was like, oh shit. He might not have a problem with alcohol, but I might have a problem with him drinking. He might not have a problem with drinking. I might have a problem with him drinking. Not something I ever thought of before, obviously. But I also know that, like, you know, because of my experiences, I can like overthink things. So I talked to a girlfriend, calmed myself down, and was just like, you know what, this is something that you need to be thoughtful about moving forward, but like maybe don't make it a deal breaker off the bat. Like you guys need to have a conversation about this and kind of see how it goes and like that kind of a thing. So like, calm the fuck down, Rachel, is what I'm saying. I told myself, like, chill, reel it in, you'll be fine. Like, he isn't your father. You're just like, take a deep breath. So then we went on a third date, and again, we didn't bring up the alcohol conversation, even though both of us wanted to have it. We just had coffee in the morning. He had a crazy busy week because of work, and he was so sweet that he like made the time to see me. He was like, no, I want to see you, and if we don't see each other on Thursday, then like it's gonna be over a week since we've seen each other. And I was like, your like desire to see me and like make it happen is so attractive. Like it's really attractive. And he's like, it's attractive. Like I think it's sexy that you even say something like that it's a compliment. And we're like, yeah. Whatever. So like we had coffee at 8 a.m. and again, it just didn't feel like maybe the appropriate time to talk about like how alcohol plays a factor in your life over morning tea. I don't know. Maybe we should have. We didn't. But he knew that I was golfing with my girlfriends that evening, except that it got rained out. It rained like biblical proportions. It was crazy. So instead of golfing, we decided to get happy hour instead, which he knew. And afterwards, he was like, hey, how was happy hour with girlfriends? And I was like, oh, it was great. And he was like, what was your drink of choice? I thought that was a weird question. Is that not a weird question? I don't know. I've never been asked that question before. But like my attention to our alcohol conversations has like ratcheted up significantly. But I told him, oh, I actually didn't end up getting a drink. I just got I got dinner instead. I decided to have dinner instead of getting a drink. And he said, sounds good. Wait for it. Yeah. That was on Thursday night. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this guy went from texting me all day, every day, to the point that it was like almost overwhelming. Like, oh my God, I'm in a relationship with this guy. The amount of text messages that I have been receiving. He went from like texting me all of the time to, that was Thursday. Friday, I had to text him at 7 p.m. Same thing Saturday. Same thing Sunday. You don't think I noticed a change? You don't feel like it's just like a coinky-dink that I told you that I wasn't drinking and you changed how you communicated with me? This is I'm not oblivious. And so on Sunday, I texted him in the evening and I was like, hey, like, what are you thinking? Like, do you want to get together again sometime? Because I'm still on the fence about, like, I don't know what it means to date a frequent drinker. I don't know what your definition is versus my definition. They might even be the same, but we haven't actually talked about it. And so I want to see you again and, like, keep this thing going and figure out, because it feels like there's potential here. And he wrote back, he had been bar hopping with his dad all day. Again, I don't get it. My family does not bar hop together. We don't bar hop at all. Like, okay, that's a family activity. Strange. So when I said on Sunday, do you want to get together again? He was like, he reiterated the point. Me, my friends, and all of my family, we like to drink, have drinks, whatever that languaging is. Do you really see yourself being comfortable in that kind of environment? Massive props to this guy for being 5 years younger than me and having, like, the clarity and insight to, like, have that tough conversation. Like, holy mother of God, this guy is impressive. And maybe it's because he went through this with an ex-girlfriend who did not like his lifestyle. And so he's very sensitive to it and super aware of it and is bringing it up. But, like, he learned his lesson with her and he's really clear about, like, what kind of girl he's looking for. And he's asking me, is it you? Of course, I didn't like the question because I didn't want to answer the question. Because my answer was no. No, I don't want to be with someone. No, I don't want to spend my life drinking. Because I know if you're golfing 4 to 5 days a week, you're drinking at least 4 to 5 days a week. And, you know, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Your significant other is going to be one of those 5 people. And if you drink a lot, I'm going to end up drinking a lot. And that's counter to, like, a health and fitness value. It's a counter to, I just think it gets in the way of so much. It's not a way that I want to live my life, period. So the answer is no. I don't want to live my life drinking. No, I don't see myself fitting in with a family that their relationships revolve around drinking. But I didn't want to say that because it made me sad, because it's so rare that I meet a guy who has such incredible potential for a relationship, right? I wanted to say, no, it's not that big of a deal. Figure it out. It'll be fine. But, like, I like you so much that I don't want it to be a big deal. But it is. Like, I want to say yes, but I have to say no. So that was the end of that. And I'd never thought of it before. So here's the silver lining. It really sucked to have to, like, go through that. Massive props to him for being so mature in the dating realm and, like, bringing it up. It's helpful to me now, having dated and gone through that in a very short period of time, right? Like, we went on a handful of dates in a 2-week period. But what I got to extrapolate from that relationship was, okay, so the person that I'm looking for, one attribute that I hadn't thought of before is they either need to be a social drinker or a non-drinker in order to fit my lifestyle, because my family and friends don't revolve around alcohol or very light use of alcohol. And that's not something that I had thought of before. I didn't realize that that was a component of life. So thank you to that guy. Thank you to my date for, like, teaching me that lesson. So it's easier for me to now go on dates and see that and have that as a filter and go, yes, no, this fits, this doesn't, this is something that I'm looking for. So yay for intentional dating and like learning new lessons about what you're looking for. Ta-da!